Hi, and welcome to another iSusi Chat, our regular Tuesday roundtable discussion about search, social, and all things marketing. I'm Carlos Fernandez, president of iSusi, and today we're going to be talking about those pesky little keywords, beyond keywords and moving from words to concepts. And joining us today, we've got two very special guests. We've got Doc Sheldon from Intrinsic Value SEO, joining us from Mexico, and we also have Peter Hatherley from Intermart, a web marketing agency in Christchurch, New Zealand. And also we have Aman Johns across the pond, our search marketing consultant here at iSusi and resident iSusi chat expert. And we have Bill Slawski, director of search marketing from GoFish Digital. So really a global hangout today, guys.
Yeah, definitely.
So before we get going, does everybody want to give a small introduction? Because we don't often have Doc on, and I think this is Peter's first time. So Amon, do you want to kick it off? Curmudgeon?
Yeah, I'm still the same old fart I always am. Amon John's been online very long time. My first tablet was made of clay and still kicking. Bill.
I'm Bill Slawski. I'm the Director of Search Marketing with GoFish Digital. I tend to spend too much time reading patents, which have convinced me to not do as much keyword research and try other approaches.
Doc, do you want to give an intro?
I'm Doc Sheldon, Intrinsic Value SEO. I'm also editor of Meld, which is struggling to relaunch, UK marketing publication. Bill, the fact that you read so many patents relieves the rest of us of that responsibility. You have my heartfelt thanks for that. I find them so dry and boring, but your write-ups never are. So you save my soul there.
Thank you. I'm too curious to find out what comes next. I can't help but read them.
That's always the fun, trying to figure out what will be the next critter to crawl out of the woodwork.
Cool. And Peter, do you want to give a quick intro and tell us about? You can also tell us about the things you've been working on your product a little bit.
Yeah. My name's Peter Hatherley. I'm Intermart Christchurch in New Zealand. And basically, we've been in web marketing since 1996. I've been around probably as long as all these other greybeards here, including Amon. Yeah, we've all got beards. It's lovely, isn't it? But yeah, so I've been really excited about this real shift, and like for me, the big difference was when Hummingbird hit, and like we were semantically optimizing when Hummingbird was released, and we had no idea that it was going to be semantically based. So just watching those sites just jump incredibly on that day was just like, and I mean it was just one day, and they all 20 odd sites just went up, and so because we'd building this semantic database over that period of time, it was just. I'd just gone into a trial about 8 weeks prior, so it was just magic timing, really. So basically, in regard to the product, I've obviously been talking about it a lot online. It's ready basically for release, and we're just working through that process at the moment. But the big thing with it is it provides a sort of mirror of what Google was producing themselves. I mean, they've got the semantic database. They're looking at and measuring that against our content, and it's not like the old days with keywords. And we all know that, in a way, the fact that they got rid of the keyword tool was a sign that they were moving away from that. And so basically, that shift away from that to a point where you can actually get semantic authority through just putting in new words. We're looking down the actual the drill down, the analytical drill down. If you go down and you look at the keywords that you're going to find through the analytical drill down, you're only going to find sort of in the top 10 you're going to find decent keywords, and we've all tried keyword tools, haven't we? And you only just get, if you go down further, you find you don't get very much more. So what we're finding is, like, if I do an analysis of the top 10, there'll be a lot of keywords. And to be honest, I think a lot of sites are still keyword based. I mean, they tend to be, they're still hanging in there because of the keywords. But we're getting I think it's between 50 to 100 words that will be different than what our competitors are. So when I analyze it, for instance, I'm just thinking of a plastering company that we've got, and Christchurch has had earthquakes and things, so obviously buildings are a very big thing here. They, for instance, are using words like stipple. Now, as an example, there's no other company that's using that word in their actual copy. So this is what we're finding is with the semantic output, we're getting unique words and being able to create unique content. As Matt Cutts, and we've all heard it, 1,000 times. Unique content and rich content is what counts. So that's the angle that we're coming from.
So just before anybody else jumps in, I want to jump back to a few things that you've said there, like semantically optimized and a few other things. We'll come back to that. I'm sure the others will jump in. But just before we jumped on air in the green room, we were talking, and Doc was saying about not having done keyword analysis for a while. I think for me there's a difference about doing keyword analysis and then optimizing the content heavily just based on those things. I mean, I do keyword analysis, and I was just saying I've ramped it up significantly over the last few years, but the reason I've done that is just for content ID, like almost content marketing, if you will, ideas or different things I've not thought about. It's not necessarily to go and optimize the a web page as such, but it just really helps think of different things. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the clients that we've done it for. People searching for different alloys with different materials in, and it's really been a help for the clients that we've been doing that for. So I guess it's what you call keyword analysis. I mean, yeah, the old way of doing it and putting it in the title tag and the URL and in the meta description and everything being this, like you're making a cake and you have to do it this particular way. That's that's long gone, obviously. But I think that there's still scope for doing keyword analysis. Whatever you want to call it, research. It really helps you try to find other little niches, things that you've not thought about.
Well, I'd agree with that too, Carlos. I think that using the difference between keyword research and keyword analysis, from the analysis standpoint, yeah, there's a lot of value still to be derived. I think you can find out what sort of queries, for instance, your most prevalent users are really looking for. Are they looking for how-to? Do they want informational? Do they want marketing? Are they looking for location-based? That has a lot of value to it. What I was talking about in the green room was basically I don't do keyword research to look for words to embed in content.
Right.
I'm trying to write content surrounding the concept, the theme of the piece, and the words will come. And if the words are not precisely the same terms that the searchers are putting into their Google, Google will figure that out. I've just seen too much to not have great confidence in their ability to make connections in the vast majority of cases.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is that basically the semantic analysis, and the hard thing for people to grasp at this point, is that when I put one keyword in, we can get 10,000 keywords out. 10,000 words that are semantically matched. So in other words, and we've tested with copywriters, we've tested it with web marketers, we've tested it with various different people. What I've found really interesting is people do it completely differently. And how I do it is I don't actually have to look at it a lot because a lot of it's in memory, but you can have a look at the whole set. You just have a quick look at the set. You can just pick them like cherries. They're just a case of tapping, and then it goes to your clipboard. You can throw it into the copy. So it's very, very easy to use. It's very simple. we cut it down to its most simple state. And so what I find is that some copywriters will just do it like the Joe Sugarman way. You know, they'll just incubate on it. And you know, I do that myself. I'll have a look at the keywords. I'll just get it's a bit like research. You know, it's like instant research. You've got all these words and a pool of words that you know that Google's got. Well, you know, to me that's a huge advantage. Now, previously we couldn't get those words because you've got to do it by analytical ways. By doing it predictively, you're getting it out of language itself, which was the breakthrough for me personally. That there was a thread in language that I've copied and gone right through a huge database of words, and I found it just linked everywhere. And it really does provide a very unique set. And that's the thing. People are looking for unique content, aren't they? The unique content is what wins on the top of the engine. You know, the also-rans or the, you know, I've got a saying on my website, getting the copy out of copywriting, you know, because why are we copyists? You know, what are we supposed to be doing here? We're supposed to be innovative, aren't we? And like at the beginning of the web, the innovative ones came to the top. I believe we're coming into an era now where the innovative ones are going to go back up to the top because of those semantics. Now, everyone's going to do this differently. You know, it's the way I've seen it in the testing. Some people will use it and pick it. Some people will just actually create a structure out of it. It's got all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah, and there's not necessarily just one right way to do it either.
That's right.
Several of those
Everybody's
ways
got their
can be
own
very
content.
effective.
Mm.
Well, were you doing the same thing that I used to do? I mean, even in the days of the keyword tools, I always backed that up with, you know, Roger's Thesaurus or something where I was looking at broader contexts of words anyway, and synonyms, and even looking at the antonyms.
Yeah. And you know, I think the thing is that when you go to the what I actually call these synchronous, because to me they synchronize with basically the word patterns around it. It creates a hierarchy. To just give a bit of a detail of it, it creates a hierarchy, and that hierarchy then links into a thesaurus. So that's where the hierarchy is about 1,000 words in general, and they're split up into positive, negative, and neutral categories. So you get both sides of the story. And the thing that I found really amazing about it originally was that we were getting negative keywords, we were getting objections, but you used to take brain scans to get. You know, like a good example was a florist. One of the semantic words that really matches with florist is a worry, and worry worldwide was one that jumped out. Now, then we could write to that concern. We could actually isolate what the problem was, and then write copy to, you know, make people feel better about their purchase. In a way, you're actually helping people because, you know, especially with a company that's bona fide, you know, they're going to get that service anyway, and you calm those fears as such.
Was that worry connection because so many people buy flowers for people in hospital and for funerals?
Yeah.
Is that where the worry was?
Well, no, it's worry about delivery, worry about whether they're bona fide. You can actually find this information out by you know, Googling it and find out what these concerns are. That is one way of getting it. But I think dealing with objections is a really good way to copyright. You've got to predict what people are going to be concerned about. And sometimes we know that, sometimes we don't know it. But this provides a framework for you to consider. And by having those negatives, and also the old keywords are fully integrated into it. So if you, for instance, if you're doing one for web marketing, you're going to get all of those keywords coming into it because they're going to be part of the puzzle. They come into a group which I call neutral or thematics, and so that really takes it to, you know, to that keyword level. But you actually get more keywords than what your general keyword tool would be. You'll get everything relating to the subject. It's like a full, you know, a full synopsis of everything to do with that particular subject that you typed in, like a query as such.
You know, if I may, Peter, I'd interject something else too. That I think an awful lot of people tend to not see. Not only is Google or any search engine that's implementing some sort of semantic capability able to determine more about what the concept of your piece is, what the page is really about, but also by exercising the ability to write semantically, you're also greatly accelerating the learning capability of those algorithms.
Oh, yeah.
So it becomes exponentially more capable in a very short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you feed into that, so you're feeding into that into the knowledge base.
Yeah.
All of the information to do with language, as this goes into it will improve the quality of what's coming out. And Google was picking this up all the time. So, to me, that's a huge advantage.
Agreed.
Mm.
We've got a question in from Kevin Burns, who says, Carlos, can you provide more details of keyword versus content? He's brought up an example of a maglev space launch system, which I was talking about with him the other day. But he just wanted more on the keyword versus content stuff.
You lose Carlos?
I think we might have lost Carlos.
I think
Okay, we'll bring that
might
on back in a moment.
Is he muted?
I think that's an interesting part at the moment, is that there almost is a separation again between the keywords and content, isn't there? I mean, it started off with a lot of us writing. Well, we wrote the content we thought we needed to write. In the very early days of the web, before SEO was a concern, you wrote for what you presumed was your customer, usually a little bit too much on here's what I do, here's what I do, here's what it's got, here's the features, here's the benefit. But it was generally just about that. We weren't worried too much about how somebody was going to get in there. Do you think that's actually starting to come back into fashion? That certainly for me, what I'm finding is that these days I'm writing copy to convert. Conversion first. Mm-hmm. Conversion is absolute paramount. And I'm almost trusting the engines to get the right people there. I'm certainly providing an awful lot of help. There's a lot of other stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not having to hammer the keywords.
When I do research for content creation, I'm thinking less about keywords and more about what the page is about. That sort of happened to me by accident with work I did for a client, but it was the site was a visitors center and convention bureau for a city. It was a tourist arm of the city, and they wanted a page to rank well for the term Black history, which there are a lot of great pages for the term. So it was a chore, and we tried it for a couple months, and getting ranking better than 100 for the term was seemingly an insurmountable process. But we said, okay, so this place has incredible number of entities, specific places that people care about, that people want to see, that people want to visit, that involve Black history. So let's make a walking tour of this city from one place to another, and all the great things that people might search for, and let's put it all on one page. And regardless of whether or not we can rank well for Black history, if we can rank well for all these places and get people to actually visit the city, drive in, take our little tour, that's really what we want anyway. We don't want to rank number 1 or number 10 or whatever for Black history. We want people to come into the city to eat at restaurants, to drink at bars, to watch football games, to stay at hotels, all the rest of that. And within a couple of months of creating about a 9,000-word essay that included a lot of these places, that page went from almost no traffic at all on the site to like 6 or 7% of all the traffic on the site. We got a lot of people in that town based on their searches for all those places. So we were thinking about not so much about the strings of words, but like Google's been saying, not strings but things, and we went for the what's related, what types of entities, what are people going to look for that's absolutely on point with this, and doing that type of research to create content rather than keyword research was a lot bigger benefit.
Yeah.
Although I totally understand where it's heading, and I totally agree with it, and like the direction that search is going here. Are you? Let me just throw this out there. If a client of yours wanted to come up, because just say that their main keyword that they thought of, and that's not necessarily always the right thing, but just say that their main goal was to try to get people that were looking for custom like aluminum extrusions. Okay, are you all saying that the like, for example, it wouldn't, I know you've done some analysis of this, Doc, that you wouldn't even need to use that phrase anywhere in the URL, in the title tag, in the copy. You could just get away with it.
It's not that you wouldn't need to use it anywhere, Carlos. It's more that you wouldn't need to use it 52 times like you used to have to. You know, a couple of places is enough.
I don't think anybody, you know.
Well, some are.
Yeah.
Some are.
Yeah. The seed topic, you know, like, this is an interesting point, because the way that Semantic Author works is you put in the keyword. So you start with a keyword, actually.
Yeah.
So in general terms, you'll say it's web design Christchurch as an example. You put that in, you put web design in. The localization is part of the parcel, but the main thing is finding all the subject matter. And, you know, once you've got that subject matter, then you can start building it in. And I think the thing is that a lot of people miss with this whole idea is that people should write naturally, right? They should be writing semantic copy, and this it actually takes away the chains of what it used to be like. And you know what it was like, Ammon. You know, you've got to go through, you do all your alt tags, you do all these other things. I can actually effectively write now without having to do that. And Moz had some information that came out the other day that proved that semantic copy alone was actually getting ranking. And so it's not about ranking, it's about being helpful. And Jay Beyer, for instance, in his book Utility, you know, puts this, you know, people are desiring more content. So we've got to have richer content, we've got to be able to drill down, there's got to be silos, you've got to put it, you've still got to organize it, you've still got to do all of the things that we do in general web structure. But the beauty is that we're providing better content and richer content on a regular basis, and I think that's the big difference.
Yeah, and that's part of what made me just do the little happy dance with when Hummingbird launched, and it became evident that it was more than just search queries that were already being enabled by Google's semantic capability. Because all of a sudden now I could concentrate more on generating content that was more engaging, more interesting, more amusing, whatever, and not have to let the search engine aspect suffer. I could actually get as much or more search engine benefit without having to write for them at all. And that that opens up so much more possibility for quality content. And which generates links, generates traffic, generates sales. It's just Jim Hedger published a piece today that I just about creamed my jeans over, because he hit it right on the head about how SEO has evolved and must continue to evolve. And one of the points that he made there that really struck home was the fact that you've got to provide value, okay? And if you are trying to provide value to the search engine, there's a cost to that. You're taking that value from someplace else, probably your readers, your users, your customers. That's not the way he worded it by any means, but that's what I took from it. And I highly, In fact, I find the link here and drop it in if anybody's interested later. But it's an excellent piece. And, I think it kind of meshes with what we're talking about in terms of the aspects that semantic content generation and semantic searchability play into.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a complete move away from keywords altogether, are we? I mean, we can still take a client who says, look, it's really important to me that I rank #1 for mobile phones in whatever region. Now, that's a specific phrase, and he needs it, and he's got a good reason for it. You know, that will get him the deal with his supplier that lets him beat the competition on price.
Exactly.
We're still doing that, right?
Yeah. And
we're just talking about less time focused on the optimization side of it. You know, it's good to know what those. Like I said, I use it for just idea generation, and just to see what potential misspelling. I mean, just there's so many different ways of saying different things as well. But it's very interesting. I'd love to see the software when it comes out because I do think that one of the bits where I fall down personally is when I have those ideas, just trying to write in a natural way, but stay.
I think that's
words, associate words, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's, you're quite right, Carlos. I mean, this is what the tool does for me. It's an idea generator. I mean, you just look at these words and you pick them like cherries, and everybody's going to do it differently. That's the thing I like about it. They're just going to click here and click there. I mean, when you've got 1,000 words to pick from, and you could actually write 2 sites with completely different keywords, and they'd rank exactly the same. In fact, I think it's actually a bad idea to set out trying to rank. It's a better idea to write better. It's a better idea to actually look at who you're talking to. Really, I mean, it's the same as all the marketing things we've learned over the years, but it's just a bit more streamlined. I think that's the best way to describe it, and you can actually look at things that you might not have considered otherwise. Yeah.
I'd be concerned about moving too far away from just focusing on content creation without doing any keyword research. After, for instance, having a client whose most frequently used phrase or term on their pages was either spelled as 2 words or a combined single word phrase, and if you looked in the search volume from Google for the 2-word phrase, it was getting about 10,000 searches a month. Look at the 1-word phrase, it was getting 800 a month.
Yeah.
That site was filled with the compressed or 1-word version of the phrase, and we changed it to the 2-word version everywhere.
Well, yeah, that's a classic instance where your analysis tells you what your customers are really looking for. It's not necessarily the group of syllables and letters that you need to embed in the copy, at least of all 52 times, right, Ammon? But it definitely tells you the sort of searches that are being entered.
The other thing I'd like to bring in here is the conversational side. I mean, we're tending to track, instead of web design, say web design Christchurch, most of our tracking would be like that. I'm typing in, conversational ones to see how the semantic optimization is going. And for instance, who is the top web designer in Christchurch? I had a bit of a deal with a web designer here that I wouldn't actually. I gave him a keyword set. I've been targeting web marketing. He's been targeting web design. But it's interesting because they're ranking #1 for web design in Christchurch. But if you type in who is the top web designer in Christchurch, we'll come up. So somehow or another, the semantic or the conversational side has been picked in there. And to be honest, I'm putting in keywords that are conversational intentionally, knowing that that's the way it's going, and that's the way it's going to go far more in the future.
A little thing that I do just to see, in terms of the real broad breadth of kind of keywords that search queries that people typing into Google is when I'm doing some analysis for a client, I'll set up a pay-per-click campaign and actually monitor some of the keywords that you can go in and look at the detail, not the keywords, not the trigger keywords that you've got in your list, but what the users have actually put in that triggered those ads. Leave that running for a month, and you're going to have more data, actual kind of like what you're saying, conversational search data than most software can give you, and it's accurate stuff.
But it's still limited.
Yeah.
Everybody I've asked who does PPC, who claims that doing a paid search campaign helps them do keyword research for SEO.
It's just a small part of it for me. Yeah.
Right. I've asked them how many times they actually target an informational type keyword phrase with their PPC, and every time they said, no, we don't do that. We target transactional query keywords only. I said, well, you're missing a big part of the keyword research you should be doing.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Of course, if they're doing any kind of broad matching, they're still getting that traffic in. But yeah, you shouldn't be using broad matching 99% of the time. That's there for Google's benefit.
Unless you're made of money.
Thank you for it.
Looking for a tax write-off.
Actually, another interesting thing here that I've found is that Google, and this might be interesting for the people who are watching, Google is actually semantically doing it with AdWords as well. We've been doing a bit of testing with it, and a lot of people make the mistake with AdWords that they think they've got to, really stuff it through with lots of keywords to even have any, a quality score. What we found is we can get quality scores with these extra semantic words, and so Google is obviously putting a lot of emphasis onto this in all of their platforms, I believe.
That's interesting. So you've actually tested that out and looked at quality score.
Yeah.
Quality scores. That's very interesting.
It is, and AdWords has been one of our main. We do a lot of AdWords, and so it's been very, very. It's always been a field that I'm been particularly interested in, and obviously the higher the quality score, the better it is for the client. The cost goes down, all of those things that are related.
Ranking goes up.
Yeah.
Good all around.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good, and so and I think it's happening on G+ as well. I regularly do search tests on G+ just to see how it's working and how much they're picking it up. Yeah. So, and I've come to the conclusion that tag weighting is definitely involved, and so people should put hashtags if they're trying to rate. I think that's important. Obviously, not too far. Not to go too far with that, but to just to be relevant. And I think relevance is the key here. Relevance leads to authority, and if we're relevant, then we become an authority. If we're not relevant, we don't become an authority. It's the way it works, isn't it? And it doesn't matter what the industry is. Anybody can be an authority in any industry. And one of the things that we're doing at the moment is training people to be able to work on G+, because it's just such a good platform, and it's just such a great way to do PR these days.
You bring up a very good point, Peter. When you bring authority into the convo, writing semantically opens up a lot of new, subtle possibilities for branding and authority building as well. If you use your imagination a little bit, because so many people seem to feel like they're going to establish authority by being heavily salesy in their approach, very promotional, which turns a lot of people off. And there's a way to do it semantically where you don't come across so self-promotional, and yet you do promote yourself more heavily to the search engine, which when that argument is still ongoing over at G+, but when authority is an established in-march process, authority rank, agent rank, That's definitely going to be a major, major goal for an awful lot of marketers.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that came up recently when I was talking with Eric Engie on his show is that there's a lot of different signals out there, and even the things that we don't know are connected. Anything that's positive for your site, that's causing good things to happen, you're getting visitors. If you've got visitors, they're more likely to comment than before. You know, even if you've got a 1% rate of people who will bother to comment, then obviously having 200 people is better than having 100 people. It's the difference between 2 comments and 1. There's a lot of things out there, and all of these things that are creating positives for your site are a tide that's lifting up all of the signals. You know, the cross-pollination is going on. It's sometimes difficult to know, it's increasingly difficult to know which things are directly an effect and which things are indirectly an effect. And I think part of semantics is that it's getting more people, it's getting more people in a broader spectrum, which is all good. It may not always be the semantic keywords themselves that are helping out, but the fact that you've now got a much wider variety of users on a much wider variety of phrases, some of which are going to be, you know, much better targeted.
Yeah, and I think the indirect effects are probably much more prevalent than the direct, and probably to Google's advantage. You know, certainly from their standpoint, they would prefer to see many things that in combination give them the desired effect rather than one thing like quantity of links or PR of the linking page. They'd much rather see 5 or 6 contributory aspects because it's more difficult to game that. And they can get much more granular in their analysis.
Yeah. And also, often, the thing they're asking is more specific to their needs. And if you answer that, of course, you've got a more satisfied customer. I think sometimes people were really robbing themselves in the past when they were going for particularly head keyword terms, you know, the big broad ones that everyone's targeting. Oh yeah, if we can rank for that, we're going to do great. But a lot of those are very general interest. There's no conversion there. There's no commitment there. There's not even anything particular that somebody wants to know. If I type in bathtubs, well, that's incredibly broad. Now, perhaps there's a bathroom showroom out there somewhere that wants that traffic and thinks it's going to be great. Maybe they can do a really good deal with their suppliers of bathtubs, but conversion-wise and semantics-wise, it's almost worthless. It's so early in the chain. You know, this is somebody who just wants to know what bathtubs are out there. What are, key things they might want to know about, or else they just want a picture of a bathtub to include in their blog post somewhere. You know, this is not somebody who's going to be buying one.
Yeah, those are searchers who are still in an information gathering stage of the research.
Exactly.
They don't know whether they want a deep sinker bathtub or they want a cloth foot bathtub.
So can we just go down that track a minute, Bill, as well? 'Cause I know it's a little bit off topic, this one, but it's kind of, I've seen a big change over the last few years in terms of what you're just saying, right? If somebody types in bathtubs and they don't put any kind of qualifier in, it's like somebody typing in web design, right? Instead of typing in, Naples web designer or Christchurch web designer, we've lost Peter, but the phrase he was asking about, if somebody just types in web design, Google has, I know that they've done this for a while, but on a lot more terms, they've been understanding the intent of the user and knowing that somebody's looking for a web designer. It's kind of like if you type in plastic surgery, it's going to give you, plastic surgeons if you're, I don't know where you are, Bill, near Washington, D.C., or for me in L.A. But if I type in liposuction, it's going to give me more informational-based things about, a Wikipedia page and this. So that development, I know it started a long time ago, Bill, but it has got a lot. Go on.
And Google's like the car dealer they're the ones, and they don't deal themselves a bad hand. So when they give you search results, they're going to say, okay, this is a broad term, but we're going to include some that are local, some businesses or people provide information or services regarding this that are nearby where you're at. So we're gonna make search result number 4 local to you. We're going to make number 7 and number 10 local to you.
Yeah. Whether it's geographically close to your location, or it's related to many of your contacts' previous searches, or your search history. I mean, that's what they do. Yeah.
Right. So I had a client in 2009 who after a month, started ranking incredibly well for a really broad term in the top 10 at number 4. And I'd look in analytics and see, they're there. I'd do the search myself, and they weren't. The local, one of the local companies that provided the same type of thing was at number 4 near me. I changed my location in the browser to the county they were in, and there they were. So Google is providing results that maybe meet some of those intents. More than one, not just location. They can do other things with other intents, other than just your context, where you're located at, which country you're in. It's like I lived in Delaware. There was a city 6 miles away, but it was in Maryland. The next biggest city was in Delaware also, but it was about 20 miles away. Newspapers never told us anything about Maryland, even though that city was a lot closer. It's completely filled with the city 20 miles away because it was going to be more relevant to what we wanted to know. Google's doing the same type of thing. They're paying attention to where there might be cultural divides, geographic divides. You get a place like San Francisco and Oakland, where somebody lives halfway between the two, and there may be cultural divides that mean that the San Francisco results are more relevant to people who live there than the Oakland results. I lived in New Jersey, halfway between Philadelphia and New York. The same type of thing. If the Yankees were in the World Series, everybody in New Jersey was a Yankees fan, even if they lived closer to Philadelphia.
I guess what all I was meaning is I've just seen a huge improvement. I know it's been doing that for a long time, but it just seems to be getting better and better. The terms and getting results in the mix. Because they've always had the kind of the local rack, the map, the local rack. But I've seen a big improvement. If it continues,
localization has been dialed right up. It's almost like local search is on by default now.
Definitely. Yeah, I've found that I don't know what I've missed there, guys. Obviously, I dropped out, so I'm not quite sure what you were talking about in between. So it's back on.
That's right. Neither were we.
We were just talking about you, Peter.
I did feel that. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously localization is well established, and I mean, you don't even really have to think about it these days. Google's doing it automatically, and that's the big advantage. And so the focus on localization is obviously less these days than what it used to be.
Yeah.
And they're obviously going to get better and better at that. I'm finding it interesting. Yeah. Go on.
Let's get this, right to where people can take away some things to use straight away in their own campaigns here. What parts of keyword research are still useful, and where? How do we use these today?
Yeah. I think that obviously at this point, using thesauruses, using research tools in that area, actually increasing your actual ability in writing. I mean, obviously, I found conversational styles, sometimes we can get too complex with what we're writing. The other thing is, that I found really, really useful is that just keeping the context there. One of the things is really making sure, and it was call to action that you were talking about before, Emma. I found that there's lesser focus on call to action now than what there was when we first began with semantic writing, and so everything really should be a call to action in some respects. Everything should resonate with people when you're writing these things, and I think the key is to actually focus on who you're targeting, how you're writing to them, and how simple. I believe simplicity is a big issue here. And we all know that in the web industry that we can get too complicated. We can say things too complicated. We can use too many words. But simplicity, I think, is the important thing. And with macro semantics, which I've talked about a bit, what happens is you actually see things from a wider view. So you can look at something. I can look at a complex statement and then break it down to a smaller statement. And sometimes we've got to do that. We've got to take complex words and try and make them simpler. And the more simple that it becomes, the more likely it's going to reach people. That's what I reckon is something people can really take away here.
For me, it's a little bit different. I mean, one of the things that I'm always very, very cautious about is trying to get everyone to the same offer, because people are in different states of minds at different times. There are different personality types. So what I'm always trying to do is, as much as possible, understand each customer and have something specific for them. A thing I wrote about back in the day was about the whole idea of landing paths, where early on you find out what their state of mind is, what their primary interest is, and then everything else you present is geared towards that knowledge, so that you are talking their language, so that you're keeping their priorities in mind. And one thing that worries me with the way I think a lot of people are starting to use semantics is they're getting back to that big bucket of everything. And we've got to be careful that Google doesn't do this as well, that it doesn't do it to us. Where
no, I understand.
I may have specifically used the words bespoke tailoring. I don't want Google sending made to measure there because it knows that the concepts are the same. Then, because they're not. Sometimes the exact wording you've chosen is because that's the exact customer you want.
Yeah. Segmenting it is important, and this is how I try to do it. Is you're quite right. You've got to target quite a few different people. You've got to target different groups, and those target groups can be, that's what I like about this thing. You can be targeting worry. You can be targeting all sorts of different things, but you've got to actually isolate that in your own mind, and it is a very important point. I agree entirely with you, Ammon, on that.
Again, going back to what your question was, Ammon, and how biggest use that I use keyword research for, and it's one of the biggest things that we do for clients, but it's really in terms of product development. Somebody selling blouses, if they know that there's more searches or there's more people, let's get away from searches. There's more demand, right? There's more demand from a sales perspective for blouses with no back or sleeveless blouses. They want to know that information. If we did something recently for an online dessert company that does cupcakes. If more people are searching for chocolate cupcakes or cinnamon cupcakes, they get other ideas for recipes or whatever. Or even in the financial clients, if there's a big demand for interest-free student checking accounts, goes on and on. That's where I really I love keyword research, and I tend to stop calling it keyword research, and it's just back to market research.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. Excellent points. Excellent points.
Yeah,
Doc, did you have anything on that?
Well, again, I think Carlos touched on some of the aspects. The analysis that you can derive from keyword yielding tools can be tremendous. Even in terms of identifying your local markets or identifying the regions that you might have untapped capabilities, that are near you. It's just so much, and if you don't understand, to the extent that we can at least, what Google is trying to do and how they're trying to do it, then you're not going to understand what you need to do to take advantage of it, plain and simple. And I just see so many people that are willing to, they'll look at XYZ blog or article and decide, oh, that makes sense. That's the way I'm going to start driving my business or my clients' businesses, and without having any idea if it's accurate, simply because it sounded like a nifty idea, does not necessarily mean it's in play. Just as Bill has pointed out numerous times, as most of us have, that the fact that Google filed a patent does not mean that it is or ever will be implemented.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of legalese in it. They're just protecting issues. They're just in case. Maybe it's something that they might want to use, so let's hammer it down now. Maybe it's just something they want to keep somebody else from getting. Maybe it's just something that could be contributory to another patent they're thinking about.
Yeah, maybe they've just heard that Bing's working on it, and they just want to go, nah.
Yeah, and so they, there's just so much that can be derived from knowing what searchers are doing, where they're doing it from, not just what terms they're using, but whether it's transactional, informational. Too many people are trying to use keyword research as a crutch upon which to build their business, as opposed to a tool with which they can fine-tune their business.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in there. I mean, you've basically got to I've lost my track of thought there, sorry. Basically, I mean, it's, you were talking about, what were you talking about, Doc?
Are you expecting to remember, Peter?
Yeah, I just lost my track. Yeah, no, sorry about that.
Ammon can juggle while you get it back.
Sorry about that. I mean,
Doc was just basically saying that there's too many people that use it as the foundation as opposed to fine-tune, the foundation of the strategy as opposed to something to help them fine-tune it, or, like I was saying, kind of expand it a little bit into other areas.
The thing that I've always kind of done with keywords is, what interests me is, I find a new keyword phrase, the first thing that goes through my mind is, what does this tell me about this kind of customer? The one who's using this phrase as opposed to the one who's using all of the other phrases. That's where I think anybody who's a marketer needs to focus.
I think if you approach things from an information architecture standpoint, understanding who your audiences are, what you're giving them to do on your website, whether it's find certain type of information or do certain types of things or so on, and look at the concepts related to those rather than the specific terms or phrases. You stop letting your keyword research be the driver of your action, because otherwise you could end up taking some significant detours to places you didn't really want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. What I was going to talk about was keyword research, because basically what actually is happening with the tool particularly is that it links into all of these things. So it'll look at etymology, it'll look at thesauruses, it'll drill down into other information. So it opens a door. It's a hierarchical system which opens a door to other avenues. And so I think that people can do that naturally. I mean, this does it sort of in a way that's structured. I think people could take away that they could do that themselves in research, but I think the research has to be a bit deeper, and the silo has to be really well thought out.
One of the things I was talking with a friend about, and viewers, before I tell you this, Do not block this one. Do not write about this one anywhere. This one's just for you watching. Okay? One of the nice ways to think about a website is you're selling something, but think of yourself as a craftsman, and you want to present your piece in the best ways. Now, imagine you're a jeweler, and you're about to show somebody, you know, lovely piece of jewelry, a tiara you've made, whatever. We prime them. You know, one of the things that will make that more valuable, more important to them when they see it is if we've already told them where the gold comes from and all the things that go into refining and getting that gold just perfect. This is what content marketing's about. We talk about, you know, the classic designs of jewelry and the process that goes into it. We might even talk about how many years we've spent learning our craft. So by the time they see that tiara, they understand more of its value because we've given them education all the way through. This is kind of what you want to think about when you're doing a website. Now, we talk about, you know, doing a story, and we always talk about it on the page. One page, one story. And what I want people to get the idea of is each page is like one little clip, one scene, one camera angle that an editor could put into a story. The links are the narrative. They're the way that the user tells their own story and puts all of those things together into an overall scene of the craftsman taking them through the process and taking them to the product. So you do need to start thinking of your pages as an overall approach. Not that one page is going to try and do it all, but the path people take through your pages is going to put the whole process together. Where that ties into the keywords is the keywords determine where somebody starts, but once they're there, it's your links that help you refine who they are and what's important to them, and you really ought to be kind of tracking paths through your site and how those relate. And that's a piece of data that Google can't take away from you, knowing that the people who went from page A to page Z were more likely to convert than the people who went from page A to page B. Now, it could be because they're different types of people, or it could be because of just something on page B was putting them off, but these are things you need to study, and often it is going to be that there's a different narrative going on. You're appealing more to the customer who from point A semantically is thinking of the things that make them click the link to page Z.
Yeah, the semantic, it should be semantically optimized on all of those levels too. This is one thing, you create multiple landing pages, you're creating far more of a wider reach for all of your content, and you know, that's very important. A lot of people just deal with the front page. The more landing pages you've got, the better results will be.
Every page is landing page.
That's right, I agree with you entirely, Bill. But a lot of people don't see it that way. They actually just optimize that front page and think that's going to be enough, and you know, I don't think it is enough. I think in today's environment, you've got to be optimizing all the way down.
And sometimes sites get that the wrong way round, where they understand every page is a landing page, but it only works as a landing page, and there's nowhere to go but the sign-up form from it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Again, they're expecting that one-page conversion. Doesn't happen.
Yeah. We've got a customer, for instance, who's got they do party boats in Auckland and New Zealand, and they've got a stag party thing. They don't want that to be on the front. They want somebody coming in the door, and they don't want that shown on the front because a lot of their customers are not that way inclined. So, you know, that's the way that you can actually separate off information and make it more, more usable for the people that are coming in.
That sounds like a doorway page.
No, that's probably a doorway page.
Carlos,
sorry, I was just being facetious. That's
I know what you're saying. But the old grannies don't like it, you know. So you've got to keep it that way.
I bet he does other types of cruises as well. Anyway, I won't get into that. All right.
He does, definitely does. Yeah.
Well,
that's the kind the grannies are after.
Well, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Thanks, Doc Sheldon, and thanks Pete Hatherley.
Yep, thanks.
Come back and join us again soon. Thanks always to Ammon Johns, our regulars, and Bill Slawski. And please join us next week Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for another iSusi chat. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Peter, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was interesting.